Hi, and welcome to this video on Raspberry Pi NVMe SSD. I recently got this Raspberry Pi hat, and this is a NVMe hat for the Raspberry Pi 5. This hat enables us to use NVMe SSDs rather than the traditional SD cards that we have been using with Raspberry Pi since it showed up. So this hat from the MCUZone came with 4 screws and a ribbon, and this hat itself, and I had to buy a separate NVMe SSD like the one in this video. It's from Gigabyte. It's 256 GB NVMe. Now don't be confused with the M.2 form factor, because with M.2 form factor we have two types of SSD, NVMe's and the SATA type SSDs. So this hat only supports NVMe's, not SATA type SSDs that usually have 2 notches instead of 1. Now all we have to do is to connect this ribbon cable here and on top of the SSD hat here, and then we have to attach the SSD as per the notch and have it screwed. To mount this hat, I mounted some supporting screws that will keep that SSD hat on top of the Raspberry Pi 5 like this, and after having it mounted I will just screw it up and have it fastened. Next we will have also the ribbon cable attached. So now the ribbon cable is attached with the SSD also attached and plugged properly. So now I'm going to put the ribbon cable in this port. This is the PCIe Express port of the Raspberry Pi 5, and after having it plugged in properly we'll be able to use the SSD hat. So pretty much that's the basic connection. There is nothing else. There is no additional thing. In fact, the hat doesn't have any external chip or sophisticated electronics, only the power and some LEDs. So now after having it assembled this way, we can now have it plugged in with our Raspberry Pi 5. So before plugging, we have to take note of the ribbon cable connector. The golden side should be facing the Raspberry Pi fan or the heatsink, and the blue side will be facing the connector's black part or the clip. The same goes with the top connector. So without having it fastened properly, attached properly, then it will not be working at all. So we have to be very careful. This small part came with this hat, but it was placed on the 2230 SSD mark. This hat supports 2230, 2242 and 2280 form factor SSDs. In my case, my SSD was 2280, which is very common. So I had to get this thing removed, and it was very easy to remove. I just used a plier to remove it. Nothing got damaged or nothing got broken by removing it. And the screw on top of the SSD notch is something that didn't come with the package, but I had it connected externally. So now it's plugged in properly with the SSD attached and the ribbon cable also attached. You can see the SSD hat is well above the heatsink, and it will not create any sort of air block or heat dissipation issues because it's properly connected and there is sufficient space. Be sure to have the connectors locked properly, or else it will not work or have some issues while working. And Also keep in mind that the ribbon cable is not touching the heatsink or any other hot areas that might sometime later cause issues with the ribbon cable, or it may get damaged somehow. So we have to be very careful when finally assembling this SSD hat. And one more thing, I added some thermal pads on my SSD hat. It didn't came with the package, but still I added these pads so that I can get some insulation between the SSD and the hat should there be any issue that the SSD get pressed somehow. So it will not touch the bottom of the SSD hat, so it will give some sort of protection. And the screws are pretty fixed so that nothing is loose or So now the SSD hat is properly mounted with the SSD, and it's now powered up, it's working. So the green light is telling it's powered up, and the ACT or action or activity LED is blinking slightly. This is telling us that the Raspberry Pi is using this SSD. We must make some modifications in the Raspberry Pi so that it boots from the NVMe rather than the traditional SD card boot. So that's something widely available. I recommend that you see Explaining Computers channel, because the author of that channel provides a lot of useful data. So that will be all, I guess, and hopefully you enjoyed. A like, subscribe will be appreciated. Thank you. Goodbye.